Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again today for TLC Presents Todd-versations. Everybody, say hello to my friend, Nathan Stornetta. Thanks, Nathan, so much for joining us. I truly appreciate you being here today. For those of you who know Nathan, you know what a great guy he is. For those that you don't, let me introduce him to you. Nathan is the Director of Client Relations at Produce Careers. Produce Career is an executive search firm for employers and employees. Nathan's responsibility is managing all their executive recruiters across the country, and he helps work to facilitate the clients and their prospective clients' needs in the hiring space. Nate is a graduate of Purdue University, and by the way, when you were at Purdue, did their football team suck back then too? You don't have to answer that. Don't worry about it. He's an avid sports fan. He's a youth coach, and more importantly, he's a great husband, great father, and he's been a part of his family at Produce Career since 2005. So, Brother Nathan, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and informing people about what it is you actually do. And one of the cool things about this platform is that we really want to uplift brands. We want to uplift ideas and what people are doing, because there's a lot of things that people, they think, oh, I kind of know what that is, but they don't really know what that is. And so this is a really cool opportunity, I think, for people to understand what it is that you do and the value that you provide and the services you provide. So I'm looking forward to hanging out today. I'm looking forward to learning a few things. I got some questions for you that I want answers to. So I think this should be a ton of fun.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Again, yeah, totally. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Totally a pleasure. So Produce Careers is a legacy company, right? So your family started it. It's, your family's all involved. So what family members are in there today and continue to work inside the business?
Sure. Father David Stornetta founded Produce Careers in 2000. Prior to that, he was the general manager of Appio there on the Central Coast in Santa Maria.
Right.
So he had close to 7-8 years running that company. That's where I actually got my first taste of the produce industry. I worked there in high school back in the carton yard, doing a variety of things, as you can imagine, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And then when Appio sold, that was a transitional phase of which Dave started strategic consulting, not only in fresh produce, but other agribusiness sectors. And with that, there came some opportunities via his network to help companies with their talent needs. So hence He started Produce Careers in Arroyo Grande, the village of AG, started with a few independents, and his business grew. I was actually doing my own deal between 2000 and 05. I graduated in 2000. First job out of school was with ConAgra Foods, doing retail sales in the upper Midwest, and then had an opportunity to do sales in the OEM market here in Indiana, original equipment manufacturers. So I had the exposure working with automotive, military, medical manufacturers. So had that sales and BD acumen experience. Right. And simultaneously, as Produce Careers was growing, in fact, Dad invited me to come down to the Southeast Produce Council. They had a function in Florida in 04. And that's when we started to talk shop. He was sharing the success of Produce Careers, right, the opportunities. And we talked for a few months and decided to pull the trigger in working together. Hence, I stayed here in Indianapolis. This is home for my family. And naturally, we're headquartered in Arroyo Grande. So we started to grow the business as far as additional family members. My sister Heidi actually jumped in for about a year, kind of dabbling, and it, probably just wasn't for her, which was totally fine. And but in 2010, older brother DJ Stornetta alluded to wanting to move back from LA to the Central Coast. So naturally, we embraced DJ with his skills, and what an opportunity to work together as a family. And we're all so unique. Dad is the total type A, drive the ship leader. I have more of the relationship skills. DJ's very much an ideator. So I'd like to think that between the three of us, collectively, we work well together and representing our industry. So and then naturally, can't forget Mama. Mary is fantastic. She's, a big part of our company, especially in the early days, traveling around the country with Father and pitching Produce Careers. So yeah, to this day, she still goes to shows and we have fun.
That's awesome. So going back to your dad kicking around the idea of doing this, right? He's in the grower shipper type space, and all of a sudden he wakes up one day and goes, "Oh, executive recruiter opportunity." I mean, what's the why behind that? Did you just see an opportunity and a need that wasn't being fulfilled?
Yes, he had some exposure to the executive search community. Okay,
Mhm.
particular party, they had some dialogue for about a year, of which there was a realization that the market had a big need in filling mid-level positions.
Mhm.
When you look at the triangle, if you will, top to bottom, naturally a lot of firms in the early days were catering to the C-suite, but huge market, right, for
Right.
mid-level. So that was the original thought, Todd, and found for Dave to found Produce Careers. But simultaneously, our network and our aptitude encompasses the collective supply chain, from C-suite executive level down to mid-level. And that's why we have the team that we have. A lot of people may not know, but we have 6 recruiters on our staff, between
Right.
California, Indy, and Austin, Texas. So
Love it.
that's how we got
So,
into it.
so tell me a little bit about what the role is of an executive search firm.
It's a great question. The
I
first
try.
thought that
I try.
Our role, I think at the end of the day is being an advisor, being a consultant,
Right.
because we value partnerships. We're not here to flip resumes and shotgun people to no, that's not how we work. And I think that's why you see us at many trade shows, right? All throughout the country, PMA, United, Southeast, Viva, FPFC, whatever. That's an opportunity. It's platforms for Produce Careers to engage with people, right?
Mhm.
As executive search consultants, learn what their needs are, what
Mhm.
their challenges are within the supply chain, and how can we be a proactive extension with their talent acquisition.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is really, really cool is that you guys tout relationship-driven approach, and I'm all about that. In my business and my clients, when I'm working with sales teams or marketing teams and talking, I'm all about the relationship, right? I'm a big believer that there's, people before POs is a good mantra of mine. So tell me how you do what you do along those lines, and I mean, and what's the process that Produce Careers goes through?
Sure. So, very much a partnership aspect as to how we approach our business, Todd. But
Mhm.
from there, you have your deliverables, right? People may like you, give you a shot, but all right, so the door is open. Now
Right.
the ball's in our court and we have to execute.
Right.
So we have a great staff, well-tenured staff, with our process. It's, again, needs analysis, more importantly, learning about the company's culture, what's important to them, right?
Mhm.
So we're matchmakers, and we offer our team a collective platform of resources. Our database has gotten very immense over 20 years. And then there's other strategic, pinpoints that we'll tap into, and industry advisors like we talk shop on occasion,
Mhm.
because you're an expert in the organic community, retail sales channel, go-to-market strategies, and you very well could have someone to refer for an exciting initiative.
Right.
So yeah, we cast a wide net and then hone in our findings, right? Market findings for our clients' hiring process.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love
So
that. I think what's really cool about what you do, and I think people may or may not recognize this, is that you truly do have a large impact on people's lives. And you're a part of that. And I think that that has to be a real high sense of satisfaction to you and to everybody else on the team that you have that opportunity. If
it,
if I would,
yes, yeah. In many ways, that's the true joy of the nature of our work, right? Going to trade shows, seeing a candidate that you placed who's happy, they've been there, 7, 8 years. I'll never forget, about 8 years ago, we brought up an individual from Mexico working with an industry supplier in the packaging side, and they had a need for the Southwest market, and they were open to sponsorship. Fantastic, right? So we
Mhm.
found someone in Mexico who wanted to move his family to the States, sharp, well-educated young man, and it happened. And he's still with the
Wow.
same entity to this day. In fact, we have a project with this entity right now, and that came up with one of our kickoff calls. Hey, Jose, he's doing great. Let's do that again.
Oh, I love
So
that. So
yeah,
you have an international reach. So you're going everywhere you can to try to find talent.
we have to. The landscape is changing with ag production,
Sure.
right? Being a California native, kind of we're seeing the changes and the challenges that's going on in California. A lot of those growers have invested in production in Mexico or South America. So we're following the supply chain. Absolutely. Things are changing. I would forecast that they'll continue to change. And we also do some work up in Canada from time to time. But yeah, there's definitely a huge international presence in the fresh produce industry.
I love that. So you work with companies, obviously, but you also work specifically with individuals, and that's something I'm interested. So how do you work with an individual? How does an individual pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I'm looking to make a change in my life, and would you help me?
Sure. Well, in our world, there's two types of candidates. One is the active candidate, right? They're eagerly seeking a new opportunity. Could be for a multitude of reasons. And then there are passive candidates. Those folks are happily, gainfully employed. But again, our obligation is to add value to our clients and share market findings. So we have to cover both sides of the fence. Individuals are more than welcome to come to Produce Careers, upload their information, or simultaneously they can pick up the phone and call someone like me on our team and confide as to what's going on in their world. And that happens occasionally, quite frequently, actually. So there's a lot of ways to get in touch with Produce Careers, and technologies,
Well, I want to talk. I want to talk about technology. I want to talk about technology a little bit because, obviously with the advent of the internet, everything has changed, but, everybody thinks that it's somewhat probably easy to place people in jobs, using internet-based stuff like that. So kind of want to lead into it a couple of different directions, but I guess my first question is, how has the internet affected what you do and how you do it?
Sure.
And specifically, let's, whether it be LinkedIn or, any of these job sites, platforms, et cetera.
Sure. Well, I think technology's changed things for everyone. The world's moving at a quicker rate. You can access information quickly. It's readily available. So how does that correlate to people and organizations that are hiring? Sure. There's a lot of online platforms where organizations can share their needs, and as they should, right? I mean, why not? But what is the variance in that exercise versus working with a search firm such as Produce Careers? The one thing, Todd, you cannot replace is that human interaction and relationships and knowing what the heck companies need, right? You may get lucky with the job posting, but in tapping into us, we have the expertise, we have the candidate pipeline to expedite their search and give them viable benchmarks. Because if their goal is to hire the best, why wouldn't they use Produce Careers?
That was a good plug.
Good
plug. I love
no downside.
No
downside
totally.
to seeing what's in the market.
And
they're not handcuffed. They're not handcuffed in working with us. There's different models to engage our services exclusively, which, that partnership's always there to work exclusively with Produce Careers. But if they want to go the contingency route, network on their own, but use us as well, again, because the goal is to hire the best. So we're here to help ensure that final choice.
Right. Well, it's got to be challenging for somebody that makes a decision to go on a platform and all of a sudden they get 200 resumes and they're trying to make decisions completely based off of what's on a piece of paper. I mean, that's a challenge. It has to be.
Sure. And you have to also consider who's doing the vetting process at that organization. There are internal experts and there are external experts at every organization. Internal experts typically correlates to HR.
Right. Well,
external experts typically is the guy that's making the final hiring decision.
Right. So, well, that's it, and it's a great. Thank you for setting me up for this next question, because that's what I was going to ask you next. It's like, well, what advice would you give an HR team that is only relying on the internet sites to hire?
My advice is to be open-minded, right? Because it's so competitive with talent acquisition that you need to, everyone's clamoring for talent right now too, Todd. There's been a big shift. Our country's reopening. There's optimism. There's in-person events going on. So I think we're a little bit bullish right now. Hence, there's a big influx of hiring. We're seeing it in particular in the past 60 days. So I would advise the internal experts, say, hey, you're competing with a lot of people in the industry to attain talent. So embrace all the resources. Include your counterparts with the screening and vetting process, because you just don't know. You don't want to miss anything.
Right. But your dad said something, and hopefully you quote about this very subject. And could you share that quote that he has?
Absolutely. I'll never forget it. But the saying is this: hiring authorities will make quick hiring decisions based on skill sets, but they'll make quick firing decisions based on character traits.
Yeah, I think
And
that's powerful.
it's fact.
So to follow up on what you said about the country reopening and coming out of this world where, everybody said Zoom once in their life in the last 12 months, is working remotely now or working from home an active negotiating tool now for people?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Depends on the type of position.
Right.
I would say that correlates more so towards sales positions.
Mm-hmm.
If the company is well structured and has the software platforms for people to plug and go, right, do their day-to-day successfully.
Right.
But it's interesting you bring up that question. I talked to an individual yesterday, an owner, and they said, man, this pandemic, I think it's really changed things, because when they're getting applicants, these are the questions the applicants are asking. Can I work from home? And his mindset is, we need to be together. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
a team. And you cannot replace the day-to-day banner you have with your coworkers, right? Ideation, execution, etc.
Culture.
But no, hey, a lot of it depends on the person. If they're autonomous, self-disciplined, and perform, right? Companies like to see their bottom line improved, then I think that can be a case-by-case situation. But our industry is pretty unique, as you know, fresh produce.
For sure.
It's 24/7, 365. So when you have your people together to, partner and execute, it really helps.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is because in some of my conversations with people, I've talked to some companies that, in our space, and to their sales guys who have been working from home. And interestingly, their numbers are higher as a company. Their sales dollars, their performance is better since they've been at home year over the, being back in the office. And so now there's this real argument kind of going on, like, well, we're certainly not underperforming. Everybody seems happier. What are you going to do? And I know there's been businesses that have turned back their leases on places. I know some major companies. I talked to somebody up in Canada that talked about how guys in the banking field were just abandoning their office spaces downtown, like in Toronto, and just going back to that home deal. So it's going to be curious to see, coming out of this pandemic and coming out of, getting back to normal, where that actually fits and sits. Because I do believe you're correct. I think, losing culture inside your walls hurts your brand in a lot of ways as well.
Potentially. Again, it all starts at the top, and the owners and leaders, they set the tone with culture, and hopefully people embrace it and they're all on the same page. Sure. I think all of us that have weathered the storm have learned to, cut operational costs in certain capacities.
For sure.
These people have looked at their general ledger and thinking, do we really need this?
Well, it's funny. I'd be curious to know if you took like a really just, it's kind of a wild sidebar thought, but, think of a company that's got 5,000 people working in an office building and everybody's working from home. How much money are they saving annually on coffee? It's a fair question. I'm just curious. I don't know the answer, but it's like, well, that's something to ponder. So
yeah.
Going back to stuff, what advice would you give somebody? And I mean, I know this is kind of a very broad question, but what advice would you give somebody about using services like yours?
From which side? The client side or the candidate side?
Either one, whichever one you want to answer. Answer them both.
Yeah.
You're on the spot.
Well, like I said with my previous statement, that I don't think there's any downside.
Right.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but
no. Well, the question's a bit repetitive, but I think
at the end of the day, we are the fresh produce industry's recruiting experts. So why wouldn't you tap into that knowledge?
Right.
To access information on people.
Right.
We're in the people industry. Go to our new website, producecareers.com. And we're blasting people, man. We're in the people business. We're passionate about the people, and we're here to help.
Right.
That's what we're all about.
Well, it is. And I think, again, you're preaching to the choir, because it is all about people. It's about relationships. It's about driving that. It's about embracing that. Because people are your best, you got to have the people to sell your brand, and your people are your best asset. And if you turn your back on them and don't go about things in the right mannerism, you generally have problems trying to be successful. There's no two ways about that.
Absolutely. And then from the client's perspective with hiring, every hire is an investment, whether you do it
for
on
sure.
your own or not. So, a bad hire, that costs a lot of money, time and money.
Time,
yeah,
for sure.
Is going to pay you dividends for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you use us.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that statement. What's the number one thing people do to shoot themselves in the foot when they're out job hunting?
Probably over promising on who they are.
Oh, interesting. A little embellishment on the little extra page on the resume.
Sure.
That's interesting. I've never thought. That's interesting. I've never thought about that, but I'm sure that is relatively common.
It happens. More times than you would think.
Right.
So that's the old honesty is the best policy.
Well, no doubt.
Be upfront, be transparent with who you are as a person, and simultaneously be transparent as you are as a company. And you can omit the funny business. So
I like that. That's a great answer.
So yeah, that would be my advice. Just be transparent who you are, the value you bring to the table. When we work with candidates for their next move, we need them to be, again, full disclosure on what they need, what's best for them and their family. Where do you want to live? Right? We have these conversations. And it's interesting because, people have a certain value in the industry. And I don't care if you're living in Salinas, Vidalia, Wenatchee, Indianapolis, and that can be a challenge for employers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can talk about where I live here in Indy. The cost of living, very affordable, right? Buy a house, you can have land, the whole deal. But when you're recruiting talent and someone's been in the industry for 10, 20 years and they've earned it, this is my value in the market, especially if you're gonna let me work from home.
I'm not advocating, I'm only asking.
So this is the price, baby. This is what I warrant. So don't worry about, I think companies sometimes get caught up and miss an opportunity to hire someone because they think, well, our cost of living is more, they should be willing to take a 20% or 10% cut. Like, really? This is who I am and this is what I can bring to the table. So.
We see it in sports. You see the elevation of salaries in sports and different things and performers or whatever the case may be, and it's relevant to the market. It's relevant to their value that they return back, right? I mean, a guy that's batting 150, batting average isn't going to make the same thing as a guy that's batting 335. It's just common sense. And your point's valid. Just to dovetail on that a little bit, because you said it briefly in one of your sentences, but what's kind of how do people shoot themselves, or give somebody just some fast advice during the interview process? Because you talked about transparency, right? And
sure.
And that's really super, super important. But what's something that your experience tells you that they do wrong in the interview process?
Well, a couple things. If someone brings up how much they want, right, when it comes to salary, probably not the right time to do it with their first interview.
Mm-hmm.
The objective is to see if there are synergies between both parties. So leave that for later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, if that candidate's working with us, then our client already has a read as to what they can expect. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to be educated and competent when it comes to the technical side.
Right.
There's hard skills and soft skills, but when it comes to the hard skills, don't embellish, don't make things up. Don't try and say things that you think are going to appease or make you more attractive to this employer. It's like, here's what I know, here's what I've done, here's what I'd love to learn and what I'd like to do. Is there an opportunity to do that with you guys? Right? So
that's great.
Yeah.
That really is good advice. And I think it goes back to what you said about transparency and over embellishing and the whole 9 yards. I think people, and I know, and it's tough because, people may be out of work or trying to find new work. And sometimes it's almost, you could be rushed into the process. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, it's not necessarily a rushed process. There is a process and it is a little methodical, and it needs to be methodical on both sides, whether you're the person looking for a job or looking for somebody with a job. If I hear you correctly, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. You're kind of leaning towards is that patience process.
Absolutely. Well, every employer's hiring process is different, but typically there's anywhere from, say, the bare minimum 3 steps all the way up to 6. Just depends.
Well, I've heard guys, some of these things take 2, 3, 4 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, we just picked up a CFO search in the Pacific Northwest this morning, and they're a family organization, and they're big believers in the psychology of things and matching people up accordingly with personality assessments. So they said, we plan on implementing the Myers-Briggs. Great. Yeah, a lot of our clients do. A lot of value.
Right.
When do you plan on implementing this?
Right.
That was my question. When do you plan on having the candidate fill this out?
Right.
They said, well, let's do it after the first interview. I said, perfect. Because if you're going to wait till the tail end and then some information comes back, then we've wasted time, right? Or if you do it on the very front end, before you even talk to someone, and these things aren't perfect. So at least hear someone out. You may make your decision after that first phone screen and say, yeah, well, they're not for us. We're not going to do the Myers-Briggs. Next.
Can you share real quickly what that is for the folks that don't know? Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs, it's a personality assessment that matches who you are accordingly with this company culture. So be like TLC, you have your employees, you all do the Myers-Briggs, come up with your information. Now you have your core information and how people can correlate to your company, right? So you set the foundation, and then other folks, prospective people that want to join TLC have to do the Myers-Briggs, and then you can go, oh, well, they're in quadrant B. We're actually in quadrant A. This may not work. So yeah, that's kind of the generality of how it works.
Well, just for those that don't know. Another kind of question, and just, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to, because I don't care, but is there a hiring pet peeve that you wish you could stop?
A hiring pet peeve.
You could say stupid questions like these and we can move on, but nonetheless, I mean, is there something that you see it's just like?
Yeah, I guess when we work with a company that may be, I don't know, for lack of better words, too departmentalized, where they're not working cohesively. It's like, okay, you got to go through this quadrant. It's like, you know what? Have a search committee. Let's formulate a hiring committee with all the experts of your company, because this is going to expedite the process. Right. And the more layers you have, so that's a pet peeve, right? The more layers you have, it's going to slow down the process. Simultaneously, it's very competitive. I mean, a lot of times the candidates that we're working with aren't only entertaining the one that we have, but they could probably maybe interviewing with someone else. Sure. So it's all about timing. Right. If you see someone that's good, act. Right? Don't wait, because if you wait too long, they're gone. Right. Yeah. No, my pet peeve. I like that. So I got a question that's kind of a departure from the produce career side of things. And the reason I ask this question is I think that you, more than a lot of folks, have a very, very unique perspective on the produce supply chain and how it's changed. So I got a couple 3-part question. I'm gonna throw them all out there at once. That way, if you kind of gurge into something bigger, I just roll with it, because I'm happy, because I think your perspective is going to be very unique. I think people are going to want to hear it. But how has the produce supply chain changed? Kind of where is it heading today, and how is it impacting people? Well, first, I would like to say I'm not the full expert with the produce supply chain. I know, but you have such a unique perspective, because you have such a huge view. Correct. Yeah, from sitting on the sidelines and been at this for 15 years, just observing what's going on. Everything starts in the ground, Todd. So there's exciting initiatives with seed manufacturers. I think that's cool. Understanding consumer trends, right? If you look at the leading categories, right, like mangoes, avocados, berries, and how does that compare against, say, 10 years ago? Let's talk about traditional growers too. Grow, pack, ship, commodity business. Well, companies are having, if you're a leafy green producer, I mean, look at all the players that have diversified what they've done over the years. and packing, Taylor, Curation Foods. I mean, the list goes on and on, but these organizations are thinking, got to do something different that's going to appeal to the consumers, right? Grab and goes, meal kits. You're seeing more and more of that, right? A lot of these companies, these startups are popping up. So that's been an interesting observation. Traditional companies, there's a food movement going on. There really is.
For sure.
What else could we talk about? Growing practices, where we talk about the challenges in California with labor, land, water. Yeah. So I think the guys in the controlled environment ag space are poised for significant growth, right? Because they can set up shop locally, produce in a greenhouse, and bang. And now their shipping costs for the retailers have, been cut way, way down. In fact, shipping's nuts right now. You know that. There's a problem. There's a pallet shortage. There's, loads moving from Cali, 12, 15 grand a pop moving loads, and a lot of challenges in the industry right now. We've got inflation. Everyone's aware of that. So, but hey, we're very innovative in the produce industry. We'll figure it out.
Seems to be the norm. It seems to be what we've done for a lot of years.
Absolutely. And then I think the import side of the business is just going to be more and more too. These growers in Peru, Chile, Colombia, right?
Yeah.
There's new ones popping up each year to cater to global distribution. Absolutely.
Yeah. We've talked with some importers about the changes that they face and what's going on and some of the struggles. But no, it sounds like the import thing is going to continue to grow. And it's interesting because we think about imports only as like what's coming here, but when you talk with them, the import thing is growing globally, right? The middle class in China is the exact basic population of the United States, 350 gazillion people. And so it's pretty interesting to see how the world is shifting and changing for sure, and how the supply chain is shifting and changing. Interesting. I appreciate your perspective. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't really care. Like I said, if I did anyway. So I want to shift gears a little bit and have a little bit of fun and ask you some other questions and just kind of come full circle on a few things. But share something with us a little bit about people that inspired you in your life.
Certainly. Who comes to mind is my mother's father, my granddad, Grandpa Joe Szymanski. He's second generation Polish American.
Polish.
Absolutely. He was born in the 1920s and served in World War II. In fact, my uncle Harvey, who's a wonderful, dynamic man, shared more information on our grandpa that I didn't even know until 6 months ago.
Wow.
I knew he was a B-52 pilot in World War II, but that was it. Grandpa never talked about it.
Right.
But Uncle Harv disclosed to us that he was somewhat of an American hero because I guess the way he understands, Todd, is if a pilot flew 20, 25 sorties, they can go home. Right?
Right.
He renewed 3 times. He did 50 plus sorties.
Wow.
Bombing in Germany, flying over his homeland in Poland. So just, I have no idea what people went through at that time, but that impacts me for someone to serve his country, serve the world, come home, had 5 kids, opened up his own business there in Monterey, California. My mother grew up in Pacific Grove on Walnut Street. And, Grandpa by far is the most classy, humble man I've ever met. Just visiting him in his house, he'd always be put together. Slacks, sweater, had a lot of pride. So
I think
I think unfortunately with today's society, that kind of mindset is dwindling. The pride and taking care of your family and et cetera. So and then also aside from Grandpa Joe, my parents, hardware, and it stems from how they were raised. Dad grew up on a dairy in Mendocino County. Life of a dairyman is tough. Cows don't milk themselves. So
that's why he went to the recruiting business.
I think he went to Cal Poly slow and realized, wow, pretty nice down here. So yeah, a lot of respect and admiration for my father, and feel very blessed to been able to work with him in the past 15 years. We've had a hell of a time. We really have.
Oh, your dad's a great guy. No, and you share the story about your grandfather, which is why I brought it back up. And my grandfather was the same way. This Polish immigrant, served our country, shared very few stories about the war. He was on a ship. Just an interesting guy in the same way. Always had on his slacks, always had on a pressed shirt. Just every day was just about always being at your best. And I think that's it was a great lesson as a kid to be around. It was a great lesson to be around. So I can appreciate that story.
Obviously that torch has been passed along to you, my friend, because you're looking mighty dapper right now.
Well, I've always say I have a face for radio, right? So I don't know. We'll see what this platform does for me. Tell me something, and tell me something about yourself that nobody probably knows, or of course you're willing to share publicly. But share something about yourself that nobody knows.
Yeah, sure.
Get embarrassed now.
Love music. Don't talk
Cool.
about music a whole lot. Unfortunately, music is, I think, that's something that should still be part of our children's school curriculum. But anywho, Mom, Mary Stornetta, has been teaching piano for 35 plus years. So I've
Wow.
had that exposure as a kid. I played piano up until 8th grade, and then opted to go with the sports route in high school. But nonetheless, music is a big part of my life, and I like musicians with diversity, right? They can not only sing but play instruments and the whole deal. So my favorite band, Mr. Linsky, is Fish from Vermont.
Nice.
Fish. Yeah.
Nice.
They're a killer jam band.
They are good.
Yeah,
they're really good.
They're fantastic. And it looks like they're going to be performing here in Indianapolis at Deer Creek for 3 nights in August. So it's pretty good odds I might be there in my lawn chair.
Well, we'll have to, I've been in the organic produce business a long time. We'll have to swap some stories of pre-fish when I was a deadhead, and we can go back and forth and tell some tales. I'm quite sure.
I can only imagine.
So I love the music thing, and I got to point out, I'm assuming that is the drum. I think it's hard to see on screen, but I think that's the drum from Purdue, right?
It is behind you. Yes, my office. I've got the Ross-Ade Stadium, the Purdue drum, and then if I turn my camera, we have this tower in the middle of the campus.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm a Boiler, proud of it. We're kind of the minority here in the state of Indiana. I have to deal with Hoosier fans and Notre Dame fans and bandwagon fans, Oh. But yeah, that is apparently one of the world's largest sports drums. And during my time frame, you could hold your head high as a Purdue football fan. I was there at the same time as Drew Brees.
Well, I was going to say, it's at least you guys got to beat something on the football field.
I'd rather talk about basketball these days.
Not a problem.
I sound like an IU fan now, don't I?
So I want to shift gears. Let's go have a little bit of fun as we wind this thing down a little bit. Let's do a little TLC trivia. You're playing for serious cash and prizes right now. You're not actually.
Bring it, man.
Yeah, no, you are. And people can play at home. They can call our operators. They're standing by, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Fire them off. Give me some fast answers. You ready? Are you afraid of spiders?
No.
How about snakes?
Very much so.
Okay, very honest. I love that. Yeah,
a gardener snake, you'll see me running, bro.
I love it. I love the honesty. So next one, dog or cat?
Oh, bird dogs all day. Let's go hunt some quail. Come on.
That was a right answer, sir. Cake or pie?
Oh, you got to go with the good pie. Apple pie, vanilla.
Tough to all Americana coming into the summer, talking about apple pie. Love it.
We can do peach. That's fine.
I love it. All right. So here's really a tough question. And this is going to test your honesty with me. Have you ever worn socks with a pair of sandals? And if you're lying, I will ask Carla for information.
Absolutely not.
I don't believe you.
No?
I don't think so. I think you answered that I think I was a little shady on an answer. You want to think it through again? I think it's a little shady. All right, I'm going to let you go with now.
I may have forgotten a few things over the years, Todd. I don't know. But
okay, so you're waffling now. So I was right. I picked you apart. On
socks with sandals. I'm wearing sandals right now. I've got some Killer Reefs on, and no socks.
And black socks. All right. So fill in the blank for this one. Fill in the blank. When I dance, I look like
the man.
The man. I was not expecting the man. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm assuming you're finding it to be positive.
Not a lot of people can dance. Not a lot of people can dance.
Well, I'm not like the
Right?
man. And again, I don't know what that means.
I mean, when I was 8 years old, Jackson 5, Michael Jackson was hot. So
No
I
doubt.
was scraping it up, bro.
No doubt. I love it. That's a great answer. It's a great answer. One final question for our time together. And I end every one of these with this, the same question. I think it's super important. If you had only one thing that you could say about produce careers, what would it be?
Genuine, which can feed out in many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the core. But yeah, we're in the people business, but that could be kind of a loose term. But we truly care about what we do, the importance of what we offer in the produce industry, helping companies grow, impacting people's lives with career changes, and then our team here at Produce Careers, right? We're a family. So I personally feel a big obligation to making this a wonderful place for them to work and do what they want to do in life.
Beautiful.
So we're all in this together, baby. Yeah.
That's such a great answer. I love that question. I love the answers I get from it. Nathan, I can't thank you enough for stopping by and hanging out with us here, sharing with people, opening up a little bit, giving some insight to not only what you do, but the process that's involved and how important the process is, and that it's just not kind of a laissez-faire kind of business. It's actually one that has a lot of value and a lot of meaning and provides a lot of service. And so, again, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you,
and
Todd.
Everybody, yeah, no problem, brother. And everybody that's been watching and hanging out with us, we appreciate you too as well. Thanks for taking the time to stop by and listen to what we have to say. We look forward to sharing more stories with you and you being a part of the Todd-versation. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Huge shout out to Nathan and all the crowd at Produce Careers. What a great group they are. They do such a, I think, service to the industry. And it was fun to learn more. There were certainly some things I didn't realize, and I was happy to get into that dialogue with him. So a huge shout out to them once again for participating with us. Thanks to our sponsors. We appreciate you very, very much. If you're interested in coming on, sharing your story with us, uplifting your brand, give us a shout. You know how to find me, TLC.organic. Best way, send me a message. Todd@toddlinsky.com is my email. Thank you once again for participating with us and listening. The audio version is available on all the podcast channels, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, etc. Video version is available on our YouTube channel, as well as our website, TLC.organic. We'll keep updating all the social sites. Don't forget us on Instagram, TLC_Todd-versations. Let's elevate the game, everybody. Let's keep talking. So come, let's chat. I'd love to have you. I'd love to learn more. I'd love to uplift your brand and educate people about what's going on out there. So I really do appreciate you stopping by. And remember, go inspire somebody today. It's super important. Thanks a lot for being with us.